So in today's video, I'm going to cover all of my techniques for layering, for backpacking and hiking. So I've learned these techniques and slowly optimized them over 15 years of spending a whole lot of time out in the wilderness. As a full-time landscape photographer, I'm out anywhere from 3 to 6 months a year hiking. And this allows me to have time to optimize these different layering techniques for any different ecosystem and any different climate that I'm in. And what I want to do is I want to narrow this down so I have a pretty precise model of what I'm going to wear when the climate's changing or when the weather's changing or anything else like that. And I also want to have a lot of overlap, meaning I don't have to change up my layering system too much depending on where I'm hiking. So the only time I'm really changing layering is for different temperatures. Everything else stays exactly the same no matter what I'm doing. And by having these different temperatures laid out, I know exactly what I need to take for every single trip without taking too much. So the first thing I'm going to do is cover what I call go gear or trail gear. And one of the big mistakes that I used to make when I first got into backpacking is I would take trail gear that I wore during the day, and then I would take some extra stuff in case my trail gear got wet. And this causes you to carry a whole lot of extra gear out with you. What I've done over the last decade is I only wear one thing on the trail every single day. If it gets wet or dirty, I just dry it out at night if I can. If I can't dry it out, I just put wet clothes on the next day on the trail. It's not a big deal. You just get used to it, and it's going to keep your pack a whole lot lighter and a lot more simple as well. So let's go from top to bottom for what I wear on the trail. The first thing I wear is a very lightweight hat, just a trucker hat, whatever you like, but all of the things that you're going to wear are going to add up as far as weight that you carry. So not only the stuff that's in your backpack, but the stuff you have on you. You have to carry up and down with every single step. So if you can get a light hat, that's absolutely great. So hat's the first thing. The next thing is my top layer. I use merino wool. This is very light merino wool. QU makes this very light overall. And I like to have a hood built into it. I like to have hoods on all of my layers because instead of having to wear a hat during the day, I can just throw a hood on. So this also has a hood, which I'll cover here in a moment. But I really like this. It's 120 merino wool, so pretty light, very breathable, keeps the sun off of you, doesn't pick up smell, and dries very quickly if it gets damp. So that's the top thing. On top of that, if it's a cold or windy day out, I wear wind protection. So this is a very lightweight wind protection shirt. You can call it a wind shirt. It's not waterproof. If it's raining, it'll keep water off your skin for a little bit. The thing about stuff like Gore-Tex or any heavy-duty waterproof gear is that if it's really raining hard, it's still going to wet through in a day of hiking. And then it's really heavy and really hard to dry out. So I just wear this really thin stuff. It's just sil nylon. And this whole jacket packs down into my hand and weighs 2 ounces. So if it's really windy out, I'll layer this up over top of this shirt. Also, if it's slightly raining, I might wear this, and it's going to keep your body warmth up with using this protective layer with the wool insulation under it. So that's the one thing. And then any of this gear that I might wear over top of my main layer, I'm just going to keep on the outside of my pack so I can easily pull it in and out. So that's the next thing for my top. The third thing that I carry is if it's going to be cold out, say from 20 to 40 degrees when I'm out hiking, I also wear a fleece. So I won't wear this while I'm hiking generally, but I'll wear it over top of this base layer, which is wool. And then if I stop to have a snack during the day, my body heat's going to start to drop, and you can get cold very quickly, especially if there's a lot of wind. I'll put this fleece on. This is also a QU fleece. I used to wear the R1 hoodie by Patagonia, but it's a bit too heavy. This fleece is only 7 ounces. The Patagonia hoodie is, I think, 16 or 17 ounces. So this is a lot lighter. You can also wear it at night. So if I were to stop for a snack during the day and I was getting cold, I have my base layer, then I would put on my fleece insulation layer, and then if I'm still cold, I would put on this wind protection layer over top of it. So this fleece and the wind protection are going to stay on the outside of my pack, and that's my full stack for when I'm out hiking during the day. I want quick access to that stuff. The next thing is bottom layers. So I just wear hiking shorts or running shorts. They're very short, and what's nice about wearing short shorts is they're going to dry quickly. They're light, but they also allow you to easily move your legs up and down. So if you have to take a really steep step, pants are actually going to pull on your knees and make it hard to have full mobility. Shorts don't do that. And then they have a built-in mesh layer so you don't have to wear underwear. So these are fantastic. They dry very quickly. And I'll leave links to all this stuff down below and in my backpacking guide. So that's the next thing I wear, and that's what I'm wearing on the trail. Now, if it's a cold day out and I'm just starting to warm up for the day, or I'm stopping for a break, I also have wind pants. These are just like this wind shirt. They protect from wind very well. They'll dry out very quickly if they do get wet, but they hold body warmth in very well. And they're also fairly baggy, and they have little clips on the bottom so I can button them down, and they'll stay tight around my ankles if I need them to. And I can fit them over my shoes so I can pull them on and off very quickly if I need them. These are also nice if you want to add an extra layer of warmth around camp. You can see that I have down pants on right now, which I'll cover further in this video, but they can also go on top of that. And then you have insulation on your legs, and then you have wind protection over that so the warm air that's being insulated doesn't get circulated around and you don't lose that heat. So these are really nice. So all this stuff that's the over top layer is staying on the outside of my pack during the day. And you can see wind shirt and wind pants, 4 ounces total, packed down to absolutely nothing, dry quickly, and they're going to protect you from a little bit of rain, but they're mostly going to keep the wind off of your skin and keep you warm. Next thing I have are feet. So the first thing I wear, if you're doing a lot of miles, these just go up to right underneath your knee, and they're compression sleeves and socks built into one. These help my legs a lot. They don't get sore as much because your muscles not moving all over the place. They also add a lot of warmth. So right now I'm hiking out in the winter, and these can add some warmth underneath the wind pants up to the level of my shorts. So you can decide if you want to wear these or not. If you're hiking a whole lot, say 15 to 20 miles a day, these can make a huge difference. And then I have Darn Tough wool socks. Darn Tough wool socks are great because they have a lifetime warranty. If you get a hole in them or they just wear out, then you can just send them back and get a new free pair. That makes them a little bit more expensive to start with, but I have 10 pairs of Darn Tough socks, and then you just wait till they wear out and you send them back in and they send you all fresh socks. So I put those on over top of the compression sleeves. If it's a warm day out, I'll just wear the compression sleeves by themselves. So you can decide if that works for you or not. The last thing is what I wear on my feet. These are Ultra Lone Peak Trail Runners. Trail runners give you a lot better foot feel on the ground because they bend around, unlike boots. So if you're off trailing, they're really nice for that because you can actually feel where your toes are touching if you have very small spaces to put your toes. They're also much more comfortable than boots because they bend. And a lot of people are going to say, well, I'll sprain my ankles if I don't wear boots. Well, if you don't have a boot that comes up to like right under your calf, you're still going to sprain your ankles. I find myself to have much stronger ankles because I actually just wear trail runners on the trail, and your ankles slowly manipulate around and they build strength doing that. So I'm wearing these all year round. Even in snow, I'll wear these. And then I have down booties for camp if it's really cold out. Today's a winter day, so it's nice to have down booties for specific situations, which I'll cover later. The Ultra Lone Peaks are also zero drop, meaning they don't have any angle of padding, so your foot's hitting flat all the time. And I find that gives a lot better maintenance for any muscle soreness in your legs. And they have really big lugs on the bottom, so really nice grip. And I'll wear these no matter what the environment is, no matter where I'm hiking. I really like the Ultra Lone Peaks. You can also try some of their other models. Some have more padding, some have less padding. It's all going to be up to your own personal preference. So now I'm going to cover layers for camp. So just like you have layers that are for the trail, you should also have layers for camp that do not duplicate themselves. So you want to layer them up from skin all the way up. So base layer is going to be a warm, soft insulation layer. And then over top of that, you'll have more insulation that could be fleece for the next layer. And then on top of that, you would have down. And then on top of that, you would have wind protection if you needed it. This is all going to vary depending on the temperature outside. It's also going to vary a lot depending on your body fat. So over the last 5 years, I've gotten into endurance running, so 50K, 100K runs, and my body fat percentage has dropped from, it was 14, and now it runs sometimes between 7 and 10%. So I've noticed a lot of variation in how well my body holds heat as I drop body fat. So something to keep in mind, for any of these techniques, you're gonna have to test them out for yourself, because what I wear as layering system is going to work as far as the technique goes, but you might need more or less insulation or layers depending on your body fat and how you hold heat for your own body. So let's start with the top again. On my head, for base layer, I'm carrying a merino wool hat, and I'm always wearing this around camp. Having a nice warm wool hat is always going to be very helpful no matter what the temperature is. Even if it's summer up in the mountains, I'm carrying this hat. Nice thing about merino wool, even if it gets wet, it will still insulate. So it might be uncomfortable because it's wet, but a lot of other materials don't insulate when they become wet. They actually make you colder. So that's the top layer. Then we'll go to the top. So at camp, next thing I'm gonna wear is a merino wool shirt. So whenever you're looking at merino wool for shirts, if it's the winter, I wear a 320 density shirt, which is a pretty heavy shirt. That's what I have right here. If it's spring or summer, I'm going to wear the 250 density. But these are things you'll need to test out on your own for your own temperature consideration. So lots of experimentation is the only way to get this dialed in perfectly. And the goal is, at the coldest temperature at night, you want to be inside of your bag with all of your layers on, and you're warm. And then a little bit of extra for that, maybe 5 degrees, because one of the worst things is being cold at night. You won't sleep well, and you won't have energy for the trail the next day. So if I'm on the verge of not showing or not knowing what to take with me for the trip, I'll always layer up a little bit more than I need, because I've spent nights in the cold before and it's just not fun, and it just ruins your whole next day on the trail. So wool, I love, because like I said, it can get wet and it still holds insulation, and merino wool's very soft. So that's the first thing. Next after that, I'm putting on my fleece over top of it. And I have the fleece on right now because it's pretty cold out. And same fleece as I wear on the trail, or I carry for the trail when I sit down to take breaks to keep me warm. I like the QU fleece because it's very light and it's very packable, only 7 ounces. So the thing to keep in mind with any dual use gear, meaning gear you're gonna carry on the trail and use for insulation at night, it can't get wet during the day. So if I'm out hiking and if it's pouring rain all day, I'm not going to keep this fleece on the outside of my pack, because when I get to camp and I want to get warm, and this is part of my layering system, if it's wet, it's just not going to keep me as warm. So the trade-off is I'm going to be a little bit colder during the day, which is fine. I won't be able to stop for breaks as long, but it's better than being cold at night. So keep that in mind if you're going to layer with dual use stuff, but my fleece is my next layer. Over top of that, I'm wearing a down jacket. This is a Feathered Friends EOS jacket. I've had 2 of these. My first one lasted me 5 years. It's $9.50 power fill down. They're kind of expensive, but they're extremely warm jackets. I think this one's 13 ounces. So it's not like a deep winter jacket, but I'll wear this jacket down into the 20s and it's just fine. So this is extremely nice to have. Anything that's really high fill down is gonna keep you really warm, and it's gonna be packable, it's gonna be light. Now what I used to do is I used to wear a lighter down jacket when it was cold out in the winter, and I would just layer them up. But what I've moved to now is, instead of using a lighter down jacket, I use a heavy fill down vest. So this is just an REI vest. It's $650 fill, so not as dense as this, but this was only $60. And what's nice about this is that you can put it on top of your jacket, and the real thing that's going to get you cold is when your middle of your body, near your heart, your lungs start to get cold. Then everything else is going to drop in temperature. Same with your head. You want to keep your head warm. But when I used to wear the lighter down jacket under my Feathered Friends jacket, it was very light. So it was like an 8-ounce jacket, and it would keep my arms a little bit warmer and my core a little bit warmer as well. But what I've decided to do instead is go with this vest, because it's the same weight as the lighter jacket, but the fill is a lot heavier. So it condenses all of my warmth into the inner part of my body, and it keeps me way warmer. I never found with that lighter jacket my arms would never get cold, just with the Feathered Friends, but my core would start to get cold. So for the same weight, I can keep my core a lot warmer, and having the core warm is gonna keep the arms warm. So I like to have the vest a lot more. Now, if I'm just out hiking around or walking around at camp, the vest can also be worn by itself if you need to. And then at night, If I'm just wearing this jacket to sleep, I have a 10-degree bag for really cold weather situations. I can use this vest as a pillow to go under my regular pillow, and it just adds a little bit more comfort. So you can mix and match these and use them for separate things. If it's really cold out at night, I will wear both of these to sleep, and that's a huge help. So let's go to legs next. Base layer on the legs. Same thing as the top. You want something soft and very warm and insulating next to your skin. I choose merino wool for this for my legs. If it's going to be cold out, winter conditions, or even early spring up in the mountains, I wear the 320 density, just like the shirt. But if it's going to be late spring or summer up in the mountains, I'll wear the 250 density for merino wool. I like to color these in the same color, so you'll notice my 320 density are both green, and then my 250 density for late spring and summer are a different color, so I can easily grab them and see them when I'm packing my kit. So that's going right next to my legs. On top of that, if it's going to be below 35 to 40 degrees out, so early spring up in the mountains or winter down here, or even winter up in the mountains, I wear these down pants. These add a whole lot of warmth. So these are the Western Mountaineering Flash down pants. They're only 8 ounces. If you're gonna get down pants, you don't want ones that are too thick because they'll be way too warm. So unless you're up in sub 20 degree temps in the mountains and the snow, these are gonna be perfect for anything but that. And I've even worn these down to like 10 degrees up in the mountains in the snow. You just have to wear maybe 2 layers of wool on your legs instead. But what's nice about these is that you can easily layer them with wind pants over them if it gets really cold at camp, and just wear your full layer stack inside your tent in your sleeping bag at night, and you'll be extremely warm. So even using a 10-degree sleeping bag, if I layer my full layer stack that I just showed you with down pants and then wind pants on the outside, it keeps me so warm that I can run that down to maybe 0-degree temps up in the mountains in the middle of the winter in the snow, and it's no problem. So all this stuff should overlap to different temperature situations. The hard part is finding for your own specific self where you're going to overlap these, and that just takes time going through different trips. And when you're finding it out, you're probably going to carry a little bit more layers than you actually need, and then you can test them. So what I did when I figured this stuff out is I would pack the exact layers that I think I needed for the temperature and then add a little bit extra, and then I would not add that extra on at camp. I would see how low I could push it with the layers for specific temps, and then you can just record that and you'll know what layers you need for specific situations. If I were to get cold at night, I would look at the temperature low at night, add the extra layer on, and then I would know for the next trip that's what I had to use in the future, and then you're not guessing on every trip and you can keep your pack weight a lot lower. So the next thing I have for feet at camp is darn tough thick wool socks. If I'm going to be out in cold weather conditions, early spring, winter, I'll wear a thicker pair of wool socks. If I'm going to be out in the summer, it's going to be pretty warm, I'll wear a thinner pair of wool socks. And these are going to stay right with all that stuff. And then if it's going to be winter, it's going to be cold out, I have Feathered Friends down booties. These are really nice to wear if you're spending long nights at camp out in the winter because the sun sets so early and it rises so late. You're probably going to have wet feet, and having these that you can wear around at camp is super useful. I love having these things. And there's 2 different parts to them. So you have the outer part that's kind of waterproof. If you walk on like wet ground, it's got a padding on the bottom, so it helps. You can't wear them in the water though. And then on the interior, it actually has the down booty. And if your feet get cold at night, you can wear these inside your sleeping bag. And then when you get out into the snow or wet conditions, you can put these on over top of it. So those are super useful. And these are another thing you're going to need to test out for different temperature scenarios and see what works for your own body temperature. This next tip is one of my favorites. So one of the best things you can do is carry some thick bread bags with you on all of your trips. So these are Dave Killer bread bags. They're really thick, they last for a long time. And what I'll do with these is when I get to camp, if I'm not carrying my down booties on the trip, or I want to dry my shoes out around camp a little bit before the next day of hiking, you just put your camp socks on, and these are going to be your dry camp socks. So you want them right next to your skin. Over top of that, you just pull on the bread bag, put it down on your foot, and then you can take your wet trail shoes and put them on top of the bread bag. Now, why this is so nice, a few different things. You don't need to carry camp sandals or camp shoes, so it cuts down on a lot of weight. The other nice thing is it's going to dry your shoes a little bit if they're soaking wet from the day. And it also allows you to walk around camp, which is a little bit harder in those down booties. So the down booties are great if it's going to be really cold out, but most of the year I'm just carrying my regular hiking shoes, my camp socks, and then Dave Killer bread bags, and I'm putting these on both feet as soon as I get to camp. The last thing I have is gloves. So I like these merino wool gloves because they're fingerless. If it's not freezing cold out, say the temps aren't getting below 20 at night, then I'm going to wear these around camp, and sometimes if it's cold, I'll wear them on the trail. The nice thing is, since they're fingerless, they actually keep your hands pretty warm. My fingers don't often get cold because my hand base stays warm, so it propagates out to the fingers. But then you don't have to take your gloves on and off the time to take photos or to make dinner or anything else. You can just constantly leave these on. And then I also wear them to bed at night if it's really cold out. But these are another thing that I'll keep with my trail gear in my pocket. If I stop for a break and I'm out hiking in the winter, I'll just put these on while I'm making a snack on the trail, and they help keep the body weight up, or the body heat up as well. Last thing is keeping your camp gear dry. So earlier I had said keep in mind if you have dual use gear that you're wearing on the trail and at camp, if it's going to be wet out that day, consider keeping the trail gear that you're going to stay for breaks in your bag. And I just use Dyneema stuff sacks to store this stuff in. Very light. This is a 1.5 ounces, just a roll top stuff sack. And that's what I'm packing all this gear into. And then inside my backpack, I use trash compactor bags that also help to keep everything really dry. Even though I'm using a Dyneema pack, it's fairly waterproof. Having these extra layers of protection the whole way down the layer stack to make sure you're always going to stay dry at camp and warm is essential.